Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Midday Java here in the Java Cafe. We're going to ask you to do a favor real quick and share this afternoon edition of Java with Jimmy. We call it Midday Java, kind of getting you over your after lunch slump, maybe the itis, depending if you're still eating Thanksgiving food. And we're going to talk about Thanksgiving in just a few moments with one of my guests. Just wanted to mention to you, for those that may be looking for me on Spark FM, we are now just streaming on this platform here on Facebook and also on Twitter and also on YouTube. And so you can still find your Midday Java here on these three platforms on Mondays. I'm not really sure about Wednesdays yet because I might just take that as an afternoon break. And I'm sure my guest I'm about to bring into the room would agree around self-care. But I also wanted to mention, and it's not just for brothers, but wanted to mention for sisters as well. At 1:30 p.m., we have a special guest coming into the room. Today's theme for Midday Java on Mondays is Black mental wealth. And we've really talked a lot about mental health, and we've talked about mental wealth. And there was an incident that happened this weekend. A life was lost. And according to what, we're observing around the situation, I'll just say that I feel compelled to have a conversation with brothers about being real about our mental wellness. And then when there are issues, being real about when we need to sit down and talk to somebody and figure some things out, from journaling to walking to, even to keep it 100. If you're, you consume some things, you want to be careful about the amounts when you're dealing with issues of stress. And so we just wanted to name that at 1:30, but I would like to bring my guest into the room. We're just coming off the Thanksgiving weekend. We also had a wonderful event this past weekend. And so I'm thankful for that. But thankful for my guest this afternoon. Well, she's not a guest. She is a commentator here in the Java Cafe when we start talking about Black mental wealth. And so, Naisha, please, for those that this may be their first time, introduce yourself, give whatever greeting you want, and then we'll jump into, seeing how your Thanksgiving was. I'm still, today's the last day I'm eating on anything. It's in 4 days. It's just, I'm done. And I'll tell you about it in a minute, but I didn't do like I thought I would. I didn't go in. I cooked, but I didn't eat the way I thought I was. So how you doing?
Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. What's going on, Java family? I got my Java mug right here.
Look at that.
Yeah,
I can see it. That's the second. Look, we got 3 editions now. That's the second edition.
Oh, dang. I need the newest one.
No, that's vintage. That's vintage.
Okay, word. So I was with you from the start. I started with you.
That's it. Charter member. Watch out there now. What's going on with you?
Anyway, my name is Naisha Deed, and I'm the founder of PureSpark, a wellness organization for Black men, Black women, and their families living in Massachusetts. So we are only focused on the Massachusetts location, and we do a ton of different things. Right now, we've been working really hard to match people with therapists and or wellness providers. It just so turns out that most people want to be matched with therapists. So we've got a list of about 100 people that we're working through in order to do that. We also have a directory. Our directory is kind of different. We have both therapists and other wellness professionals on our directory platform. So that includes like doulas, life coaches, anything that kind of encapsulates wellness. and Black wellness at that. So thanks for having me.
I am definitely glad to have you in the room. And I see some folks that are in the room. Do me a favor and make sure you tag some brothers or share today's cup of midday Java, because along with this segment here, we're going to talk about Thanksgiving, and we're going to, we're really going to be real about, and as we have been in the past few weeks, about protecting our peace and being, you know, cognizant of some things with family or whatever. So Naisha, however you want to flow with this topic, but how was your Thanksgiving? How was it?
It went well. So I actually spent Thanksgiving out of town. I'm originally from Boston. I live here in Roxbury, and I went down to Connecticut to spend time with my family down there. And I just love being in Connecticut. You know, it reminds me of my grandmother because that's where she lived before she passed away. And my family's from the South. She's from Alabama specifically. My mom's side specifically is from Alabama.
Hold on. We have never, and if she ever watches or she ever comes in, I just found out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, my mom,
Sister Maddie D, who I have known for a long time, and she voted for me to be a Massachusetts Democratic ward delegate.
Delegate.
Yes. And so shout out to Mother Deed. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I couldn't let that pass.
Yes. So, you know, just being back in Connecticut makes me feel rooted. It makes me feel closer to family. And even if I'm not around them, I just feel, you know, it's like my second home. So we just welcomed in 2 new family members. I have 2 new baby cousins. Okay. One's my goddaughter. Okay. So I went down there, you know, specifically to make sure that I met them and hang out with them, and then hang out with some of my older cousins too. So my Thanksgiving was, you know, I don't really call it Thanksgiving anymore. I call it Family Day, but okay. I know most people call it Thanksgiving, real. But you know, my Family Day went well. I was surprised as you that I didn't overeat. This is my first time kind of changing the way that I eat for a better overall wellness. And I literally had a spoonful of everything and I was done. And I brought my own food, you know, but I wanted to, you know, commune with family. So I sat down and had a little bit of everything, but it was a very small amount, little piece of cornbread, some mac and cheese, little tiny. And I did that. And I was very proud of myself.
You can see you can see it in your body language. You like almost wanted to go, and I did that.
I did.
So you kept it real, because last week you said that you were going to do that, you know, do whatever you need to do health-wise. I think actually Dr. Fatima, and I have to give a shout out to her. She came on last Tuesday with the MGH. You know, we did staying healthy during the holidays. And so I really listened to her, outside of the fact that I still have my chitlins. But I cooked. And so, you know, sometimes when you cook, you don't, you know, want to eat. And so it wasn't all that. I just couldn't bring myself to do the pig out big plate with everything. She was in the back of my head. I'm thinking about my body. I even laid down and ate a little bit one day, and then I felt weird because, you know, you're not supposed to lay down eating or whatever. So it was different for me this year, and I might do a little damage, you know, before I throw everything out today. But, you know, food is one part of it. Family is the other. And so let me just ask you, not to be petty or to put your family out there, but, you know, we got family members. Oh, look at you, Naisha, you over there being all healthy and whatnot. Like, why are you doing that? Like, was there, you know, you don't want to put your family out there sometimes.
No, that's okay. No, actually, you know, one of my family members, you know, mentioned like, oh, wow, you know, you look really lean, you know, or, you know, you lost weight. So a part of the journey that I'm on, it actually caused me to let go of a lot of toxic things, right? Yep. Mentally and physically. So I did lose the big old gut that I used to carry around, right? That's gone
now. Yep.
You know, it's my belly is flatter because there's certain things that I'm not eating anymore. That kind of changed the way that my body looks. So I wasn't necessarily looking to transform my body, but, you know, more so thinking about, I want to eat nutritious meals so that, like, our body is our temple, right? You know, let's make sure that it is clean and it is functioning well. So I only got a comment, only like positive comments, really. Good. But I also talk to my family and they know what kind of journey I'm on. So I've already prepped them, told them that, hey, look, I'm on this healing journey. This is kind of how I eat now. And they're all kind of in the know,
Okay. So we're talking from the topic. We do a little pregame. And so we were talking with Naisha about what our topic was going to be today. And the topic is, does our mental health suffer during the holidays? And so this is kind of like the beginning. Thanksgiving is the first one. For some, it goes until, what do you call it? New Year's. And then for Latinx family, it goes until Three Kings Day. And so, there's a lot of times we'll come together with family members. And Naisha, you had a good experience on Thursday, but let me ask you the question. Your topic, Naisha. Does our mental health suffer during the holidays? Yes or no?
It can. It can. It definitely can.
I got to give you good answer. Good answer. Sorry. Go ahead. I feel like Steve Harvey real quick. Watch out there now. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. I can't with you in the sound effects.
Listen,
you're cracking me up. It definitely can. But I just wanted to touch back on the food and, Thanksgiving, because, I think we talked last time about like, we got to make sure we're eating healthy. And like whenever we bring up food in our culture, whether it be any part of the diaspora, the Latin part, the Caribbean part, whatever, people start to kind of get a little bit testy, a little bit offensive. Like, what you mean I can't eat my chitterlings or my, mac and cheese anymore? Like, I love my food. And I had like an aha moment yesterday. And I thought, wow, you know what? Food is culture, right? Like, we are connected to each other by like the foods that we eat. So if I talk about the greens and the mashed potatoes and stuff and how we cook it,
I was just like, greens. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like you get we're connected that way, and it's a part of our tradition. So of course, we want to uphold our traditions, right? And we don't want to let our culture go. We've already been through so much as as a people. We want to hold on to what we have left, and food is one of the things that we do have left to kind of hold on to, and that bonds us together. So I do understand why people get a little bit like offensive or testy when, we say like put down the sweet potato pie, because grandma got diabetes and, that might not be a good thing. So I understand the mental part of that. I really do. And I know that it's going to take a lot for us to kind of deviate away from that. But, I really hope that we can get back to, the medicinal parts of food, because a lot of people don't know about that part. And that part is actually a part of our culture too. So I just want to put that there.
Well, there's a medicinal part of our culture, and to take it, we talked about chitterlings. To take it right there, let's be 100 that we have to name, we talk about Black mental wealth. We have to name the fact that a lot of our cultural traditions in the Black community, when it comes to certain foods after coming here, being bought here, that they're based on what was left of the scraps. You know what I mean? And so that's where, because, chitlins is the number one thing that usually comes up when people talk about not being healthy during Thanksgiving. Listen, I was taught it was a delicacy, growing up. And then I got older and found out the truth. And I was like, oh, that's why it's a delicacy, because, but anyway, it is definitely important to name that. But then there is the medicinal piece. But away from the medicinal herbs and things, just as you talked, you're not eating just for body change. Would you say it's just a byproduct of you wanting just to be more healthy?
Yeah, well, I know that this is a topic that, we could probably talk about another day because it's so expansive. But there is a big connection between what we eat and our mental health. Like there's certain.
So you're good. I was going to ask that in a couple of seconds. So you're good.
Okay. Yeah, there's certain foods, processed sugars and those types of things, a lot of processed foods that can kind of trigger certain things like depression and anxiety. And there's studies on this. And so trying to figure out what's good for us to eat and listening to our bodies, just kind of like what you did, Jimmy, when you were laying down, you said, oh, that doesn't feel good. Let me sit up. That's our body trying to tell us certain things, but because we've been eating a certain way for so long, a lot of those indicators have like turned off, you know, and we can't really hear our bodies speak to us and say, that's not good, you know. But it's really, like you said, getting back to our roots. Like even Harriet Tubman, she was an apothecarian, or I don't even know if that's the right word, like an herbalist.
You'll make it. It's fine in a Java cafe, Jesus.
Yeah, you know what I mean. She was somewhat of an herbalist, where she actually did help to heal people through natural means of medicine. So it is a part of our culture. And so I want us to get back to that. I know it's going to be a journey and it's going to be a lot of work. But you know, it starts with self. So, you know, when people start to ask me like, yo, you look like, hey, I'm changing my lifestyle.
That's kind of where I am. And it's funny because, you know, 50 years, I'm used to the resolution thing. You know what I mean? And so I am in that mindset. Okay, skip my birthday. You know, we have milestones when we're going to do stuff. Birthday, you know, first of the year, you know, June 1st or July 1st, because it's halfway through the year, whatever. And so I am really getting to a point where it's not just about the body image, but really wanting to be holistically, you know, people say, well, holistically healthy is an oxymoron. It's redundant. I just want to reiterate the fact that every aspect of our lives, I believe we're body, spirit, and soul. You know what I mean? And so we do well at taking care of, you know, to some extent, the body. We work out, we might eat well, you know, what we're talking about today. But we also have to be aware of like our soulish place in our spirit as well. You know what I mean? And you and I both are people that believe in spirituality. I wanted to check in with you. We got, you know, we're not as time restricted here. And so, and Carlos Henriquez folks are coming in at 1:30, and we're really going to talk men and mental health. And there'll be some crossover with Naisha and Carlos. But, you know, when you talked about, we're getting back to, does our mental health suffer? We went back to the food, did the correlation of how food can potentially, you know, interfere with our mental health. But in other ways, Naisha, what are some ways that, well, you said it can. Your answer was it can. And so what are a couple of ways that you may be familiar with your mental health can suffer during the holiday if you're not careful?
Yeah.
Mental health can suffer with rather during the holidays.
Yeah, I think sometimes we feel pressure, right? Pressure to be around certain family members that you might not necessarily feel like being around. Pressure to spend uncontrollably like amounts of money so that certain family members can be happy. You know what I mean?
We've been naming that.
Right. Or people just not respecting your boundaries that you might set. Like, hey, I don't want to talk about that topic, you know, during dinner. I don't want to talk about my relationships and, you know, that and people just going ham anyway. So those things, you know, can affect us. And I think it's important to think about what it is that you want. Right. Yeah. So I did something I went rogue this year, and I told my sister, and I'll tell the rest of my family, like, hey, I'm not buying gifts this year for Christmas.
What did the nieces and nephews say? Sister and adults are one.
They're older. So and so my family dynamics are in a way that I don't have any like really young nieces and nephews. They are working. Both of them. They got paychecks.
Did you emphasize working?
Yes. And so, you know, I think that made me feel a little bit less pressure. Okay. But I'm also in a new mindset. I don't know. Maybe even if they were still young, I don't know what I would do.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm just kind of like, Christmas to me is about being around my family.
Yeah.
It's about spending time with each other. You know, it's about telling stories. So we're gonna get together, me and my cousins and my family get together and like tell stories about things that happened back in the day that my nieces and nephews might not know. We're gonna record it, you know. So this might be the start of a new tradition.
Okay.
But I just felt like I don't want to do any unnecessary spending this year.
Okay.
Like,
and that's that. But we've been talking about that. Again, the topic is Black mental wealth. And so there's this, and I wish there was a way to clearly articulate the correlation between our, I call it money mentality And also, I guess it's the mental piece of feeling obligated. You and Jelani a couple of weeks ago even went into love language. That's not just in, boyfriend, girlfriend, boy, whatever. It is also in parental. It's in, okay, you're a godmother. Some of us godchildren looked at our godparents as money trees. That was like, some godparents set that up, that my godmother did initially, like every Christmas, everything. And then as I got older, working, as you said, godmother was, not like that. And so, as she's resting in heaven. But what are other ways that we, there's the money piece, as you said. What is another way? We've talked a little bit about family and setting boundaries. What is another way that our our holiday can suffer? It doesn't have to, but can.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think to kind of make it simple, it can suffer when you're doing the things that you don't want to do. So
Okay.
whether it's being around the people that you don't necessarily want to be around, having the conversations that you don't necessarily want to have, I think it's any of those things, right? And it gets tough because of like what you just mentioned, the expectation. There is this expectation that you're going to buy expensive gifts, that you're going to be there for dinner and you're going to stay the whole amount of time. Yeah, you could show up. You could show up, and when you're ready to leave, you can leave, right? You got there and you could go, right?
I practice that very well. So you see how my mouth opened, because for me, that's a comfortable place for me. I get there when I get there, and when I'm ready to go. And there have been times, Naisha, where stuff has went down, I don't say goodbye. I literally, it's going on, grab my coat, and next thing you know, I'm getting text. Did you leave? Yep. Sorry. Y'all can beat me up later, family. Go ahead, Naisha. I'm sorry.
No. It's like I gotta protect my space. I gotta protect my sanity.
Yep.
I gotta protect my well-being. But I think, during the holidays, there's this big expectation that kind of weighs us down. And it's from our family members, and sometimes we put the expectations on ourselves. But I think it's important to listen to our inner voices that's telling us, I don't feel like doing this. And that's A-okay.
Can you speak to giving ourselves grace? You've used that term before. Dr. Brandy used it this morning. What does that look like when we have to give ourselves grace to do these things and not feel guilty? And, how does that look, giving yourself grace?
Well, I'm going to say, I don't think it's easy. And
Okay.
I always caveat everything I say with like, this is the ideal, right? But realistically, this stuff is hard, especially when you're talking with people that, you've had relationships with for so long, like your parents or a sibling or, other extended relatives. Like, this stuff can be really hard to do.
Absolutely.
Right. So, giving yourself grace just kind of looks like, even though it's hard, still speaking up. Right. Even though you might be fearful, still doing it anyhow. Right. And then giving each other compassion. Right. And like I said, it's kind of like a muscle. Like, once you do it often enough, you start to get used to it. Right. And then you start to use it around in other parts of your life. And you just start seeing things shift, I think we think of wellness a lot of times just like as like working out and what we eat, but it's these habits and the way that you live your life, and the way that you treat these relationships that are way harder than working out. Okay. These things are like, in my view, they're extremely hard because there's a fear of like, dang, if I do this, is this family member or is this person going to abandon me? Yep. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But if we can give each other grace and extend grace to each other, then the relationship doesn't suffer.
So let me ask you to go a little bit deeper there, because you talked about giving ourselves grace. What is for some people that are doing well at giving themselves grace? Oh, they're great at that. Let's talk a little bit, and I see the smile, so you know where I'm going. What about the people that can do just a little bit better at extending grace to others?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the golden rule of treating others the way you want to be treated, right?
Simple.
So trying to like imagine yourself in that other person's shoes, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
also saying, reminding yourself like, no one owes me anything. Like no one owes me anything, right?
Yeah.
So if I build up these expectations, guess what? I'm preparing myself for disappointment, right? And that's a tough one. You know what I'm saying? Like I struggle with disappointment. Boy, do I struggle. But it's because I've set up expectations on other people. And sometimes it's not fair.
Yep.
It's not fair.
And it's funny because Carlos just jumped in, and I think that's a good segue, soft, and we can go into the business that we're going to talk about. But I think that's a good segue. I'm going to bring in our other guest, Carlos Henriquez, who's coming into the room. Expectations is a big thing. Managing expectations. We're going to talk Black men and mental health in just a few moments. But Naisha, to your point, and then I'll let you two cross over. My pastor and like spiritual father used to teach, don't have any expectations. Because when you have expectations, they will more than likely, and especially when you start talking about human beings, and we're all human beings, they could possibly wind up being disappointed. So Carlos, good afternoon, sir. Jump in anywhere you want. I know I kind of just brought you in, kind of just out there, but what's up, brother?
I've been following the conversation this morning. Good morning or good afternoon to both of you. It's a great conversation thus far.
We're
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Everything is good with you, sir?
No complaints. I mean, I'm just happy it's been about almost 2 years now since the three of us first kind of met and convened around mental health for Dee Dee's Cry.
I wasn't at the very first in person. Was I? Wait a minute, Jesus.
I don't know if you were there.
I don't know if you were there. I know I met Naisha there at Grove Hall.
That's what counts. Look, that's what counts. No, I wasn't, because I'm thinking the bowling building. So no, I wasn't there. We got that established.
Carlos, how was the Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good, quiet. I'm kind of in the mindset. I've kind of been in that mindset that you talked about a few minutes ago for several years now. I've just kind of made the holidays what I want them to be, with less expectations around how much traveling you should do, whether you get that group text or not. I'm just about what's important to me on that day, how I feel on that day, without all the pre-programming that comes with it, how much you have to spend, where you have to be, who has to be there, all that. I've kind of shed that a few years ago. So I just, we're really, me and my significant other, we spent some time around some friends, not even family this year, and it was fine. It was fellowship. We had some jokes, and we spent time with ourselves, and that was enough.
That sounds
I ain't mad at it. Look, I ain't mad at it, because we were talking a little bit, Carlos, and Naisha, I'll let you go in a couple of seconds, about giving ourselves grace. To be, if you know Carlos, he's in a church we grew up to learn about dispensations. He's in a special dispensation of grace, Jesus, giving yourself grace. Well, Carlos, can you end on that with Naisha? How are you doing with giving yourself grace?
I'm getting a lot better at it. It has been a practice. I got excited when I heard Naisha talking about it, because once you get into the process, it's easy to talk about it as if it's an easy thing to do. But it was really somebody that was close to me probably 10 years ago that told me I needed to learn how to forgive myself. And when the words were said to me, I was just like, oh, that seems pretty easy. Like, I'm sure I've done that before. But until I started saying it and really doing it for myself the same way I would do for others, in terms of saying, listen, that's all right. It's behind you. What's done is done. Until I really started exercising grace for myself, it wasn't until I started practicing it that I could move away from the shame and realize how much shame I had been carrying around my own failures from the past, or what I perceived as a failure. It might not even have been a failure, but just something I carried for a year, for 5 years, from high school and beyond. So being able to move past that, obviously it doesn't solve everything, but it makes a huge difference when you give yourself grace and forgiveness the same way you would give a family member or a friend that has betrayed you. You should show more grace for yourself than you would for anybody else.
Thoughts, Naisha, before we let you go?
Amen. Amen. Forgiveness is hard, but it's so freeing. You know what I mean? And like Carlos said, sometimes you don't even know that you're carrying it. And the way that it manifests itself in your body too. The way, you might carry it in your shoulders, you might carry certain things in your gut, but when you release it, woo, it's a good feeling. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. I mean, I think that my favorite part is not only how it makes me feel, but also it gives me room to treat others differently. So once I've forgiven myself, I can't forgive somebody else for their trespasses if I haven't forgiven myself, right? I'm just going to tuck that away and hold that grudge. So it wasn't until I started to forgive myself that I had room to forgive others. And James, like you said earlier, it wasn't until I started to either not have the same expectations or clearly define what my expectations were up front. I heard Naisha talk about boundaries earlier. Once I say what my expectations are, then I can hold myself and the person I'm talking to accountable to that. But I go in mindful now instead of just blind thinking, okay, this is Christmas or this is this dinner and this is going to feel like this. I'm setting the table for what I expect. And if it doesn't meet that expectations, then I excuse myself from the table and I'm out of that situation.
Facts.
Okay. I was just making sure Naisha had nothing more to contribute there. Naisha, I appreciate you. We're going to be here next Monday, December 6th at 1 p.m. for Midday Java and talking Black mental wealth. And each week you can depend on something different, but you can also depend to hear some key notes about taking care of yourself and making yourself a priority. And there's the wealth piece that we deviated away from a little bit. Jelani wasn't able to be with us today, but we're going to talk about a different form of wealth, especially for our men. So sisters, we're not saying don't watch, but Naisha, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much. Don't forget, you can find PureSpark there.
You can find us on social media at Your PureSpark on Facebook and Instagram, and also LinkedIn for those people that are on LinkedIn. And you can also check us out on our website, www.yourpurespark.com.
And so I'm going to do much better at getting all my graphics and stuff ready. You know, I had to break down this weekend, so please forgive me, but we're going to get you covered. Naisha, thank you. Appreciate you so much.
All right. Take care. Be well. Bye.
Sis.
Listen, everybody, we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with you. We're going to come back in a couple of seconds and talk with Carlos Henriquez around Black men and mental health. It is imperative that we have this conversation. I'll give some context to it in just a couple of seconds, but just give us about 30 seconds and we will be right back with you. There is something still out there called the coronavirus, and there's a new variant. Carlos, did you peep the name yet? You know all the stuff. What's the O in the
Omicron?
First of all, not to make light of a serious situation, but Delta is one thing. Say it again.
Omicron. Omicron. Omicron.
That sounds like something from Star Trek. What was it? Buck Rogers. I'm really telling my age right now. We're going to go to.
You went back with Buck Rogers right there.
We'll be right back with you.
Well, COVID-19 has deeply hurt our community. I recognized that we needed to heal. Healing spiritually, healing emotionally, healing physically. That's why we knew we needed a vaccination clinic at 12th Baptist Church.
I just really had a lot of initial hesitation. From hesitation to education is how I got to a point of like being more hopeful. When I decided to get the vaccination, I really wanted to come here because I knew we had a site.
I was one of the first people when I was afforded the opportunity to be vaccinated, to be an example myself.
The vaccination will definitely change life. I want to get back to a life where I can be around my family and friends.
With every vaccination, we're one step closer to hope.
Join us, get vaccinated.
Have hope.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are back with my guest, Carlos Henriquez, who is the host of the PSA show on Spark FM Online every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And that is something that he's been doing more recently. I have known this man. Well, no, the show is something he's been doing more recently, but him educating the community around civic engagement and mobilization is something I've met him doing. And so there's another thing that he does that talks about mental health. He has been on this platform before. He talks about it with Dee Dee's Cry on Spark FM about mental health and the importance of it. I'm going to be very 100 and name that many of us are aware of a situation that happened this weekend that involved, and it's been on social media, that involved domestic violence. And we've often talked about, and Carlos, you have named this before and kept it very real about how addressing our mental health can contribute to positive, relationships with significant others, non-platonic ones, partners. And also it puts you, and you talked about it a few minutes ago, it puts you in a better space to deal with others in general. And so in general, sir, first of all, I'm sorry. How are you? And today's Monday, right? Let's do what we do in the morning and ask you to describe your current mental health status by using one word. And before he does that, folks, tag some brothers and some men that they may say, well, why you tag me? You can tell them about it later. We're going to have it's daytime, but we're going to have a very real conversation about men and mental health. Carlos, how are you, sir? One word.
One word, challenged. I'm challenged today.
Okay. And some can presume, but I don't know. I'm not in your brain. Why are you challenged?
The challenges to me, and especially around mental health, is to maintain a healthy balance, with all this different forms of stimulation, stuff around that we see nationally, the stuff, obviously our personal lives, but also the stuff you see with Kyle Rittenhouse and around the 3 convicted of Ahmaud Arbery. You're as a Black man, I'm very cognizant of how Black men and Black women are treated throughout our national lens and a very local lens, and of course my personal life lens. So trying to maintain a balance and not let things push me too far in one direction is always a challenge to me that I'm mindful of.
I thank you for naming the challenge. And I would say I have to concur with that would be my word for this segment as well, is challenged. And that's why I really thank you. And we want to thank Jelani. He wasn't able to be here with us today, but he's been holding it down the past couple of weeks. But Carlos, thank you for coming in last minute. And I kept it very real with him when I reached out and said, I'm watching some things on social media, got a couple of family members that are connected to the situation. And my mind went to just the importance of creating a space where men can hear brothers talk about that it's okay to admit that if you're not okay. Carlos just said he was challenged. You know what I mean? And so Carlos, let's just jump right in and be real. And you've said it before. It's often said, that men, real men don't express their feelings. Real men, don't cry and they're soft and all this other. What do you say to that notion in 2021?
I would encourage everybody to push back on that pre-programming that we received since the time we were little boys. That's all it is really just pre-programming how the world wants us to believe we should behave. We're all individuals. We should be able to behave as individuals. We should learn to master our own emotions. And that includes being able to feel them, show them, and do it in a manner that's healthy, or at least not harmful to yourself or to others. So the whole, I push back on all that. Being able to cry, being able to be sad, being able to talk about it are all activities and things that men and women should be able to do freely and feel confident doing.
So I only have you for a few minutes today, and again, thank you. When you let's jump into the context I set earlier. What is the benefit, Carlos, of men? All that you named nationally, all that we're dealing with individually. What is the benefit of addressing your mental health before we can get to a wealth space?
Right.
You can have all the money in the world, but if this and to some extent this and the soul isn't right, what is the benefit of acknowledging and then addressing issues around maintaining mental wellness, and then if we're feeling some sort of way, addressing it?
From my perspective, I think the benefit is being able to be the most authentic being you can be. So you're born with these emotions. You're born with all the same emotions as a woman or someone of a different age or different ethnicity. So to have to stifle them as a man or to be taught and accept that you have to stifle them means you're stifling part of who you are. So I think the first benefit is that you get to be you. And all your emotions are part of what makes you you. Like you said, your mind, your heart, what you feel is uniquely yours. So if you can't embrace all of it, or you're taught and learned to suppress some of it, it's going to affect how you behave. It's going to affect how you treat yourself. It's going to then affect how you treat others. That's going to affect how your community looks and acts. And so that it just multiplies outward. So the more genuine you can be with yourself, the better chance you have for improvement, the better chance you have for better health and wellness, all the way across the board, from emotional to physical to spiritual. And so I think the benefit, it's mostly for yourself. It's not necessarily for anybody else but you.
Is it, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to try to frame it right. How much of, we on this thing of keeping it 100 and I'm that dude and you talked about authenticity.
Yeah.
How much of a benefit is it to you to keep it real if you're not cool? If you feel in some sort of way, this situation for many brothers, let's just.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think of my favorite poet, Sean Carter, like you can't heal what you don't reveal. So the benefit is if you say it, even if you're not cool, if I find the right support system, a loved one, a partner, a platonic friend, a therapist, a men's group, And I can say to this group, listen, I'm not feeling well today. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling ashamed of something that happened before. I now have the opportunity to get counsel, receive counsel on it, hopefully good counsel. I now have the opportunity to explore it and maybe resolve it so I can put it down and move past it. If I just hold it and never speak to it, I don't allow myself that opportunity.
What can you give me an elementary visual of what not addressing it would look like?
I'll give you a personal
visual?
one. I'll give you a personal one. I grew up in a very proud household. 2 parents. I was supposed to be like one of the Cosby kids. I was supposed to be a great student in high school, and I started to deviate from being a good student. And because I did not walk across the stage and receive my diploma, which to me, I knew I let my parents down. They never necessarily directly said it to me, but I knew it, and I carried that probably from the age of 19 till about 31 when I was sworn into the State House. And it wasn't until my parents sat next to me and saw me get sworn into the State House that I realized I had been carrying this weight for almost 11, 12 years. And that stuff led me to different bouts of disappointment, depression when I was a teenager, maybe abusing alcohol when I was in my late teens and early 20s. It manifests in a lot of different ways, some self-destructive behavior, just because I wasn't able to deal with the shame of letting myself down, letting my parents down, etc. And so, those things can multiply and snowball into other things.
Carlos said we're a little, I asked you to give 15 minutes. He had mentioned his significant other, and they're taking care of some things. But I wanted to ask him to come in because I wanted a certain caliber and a cadence of voice. For those of you that can tag some brothers, have them go back and watch this after. Carlos, I'll ask you to end with this. And you've been very real about this. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to brothers that might have a PO, when it comes to brothers that's dealing with DY a little bit younger. I heard you say something here once, but I heard you, I think, initially say it somewhere else. And maybe it was on your own platform. That addressing this, put it in layman's terms, where if you knew this could impact, brothers across the city, just keep it 100 about how addressing this can benefit you and not the, it's real. Not, I was going to say the hunky dory, it's nice stuff, but keep it 100, sir, for brothers that will hear this later.
I mean, I guess I could share what I would share with some of my closest friends when we're talking about more having heart to hearts. And we talked a little bit about how important it is for us to kind of question the things we were taught as boys, even by our older brothers, even by some of our mentors might not have been mature enough when they mentored us to really steer us in the right direction. So I encourage everybody to question what they believe and what they were taught, because you are going to do the things that you believe in. If you believe that you're stronger and smarter, you're going to carry yourself a certain way. So you have to understand your beliefs to understand why you do the things you do. Once you have an understanding of what you believe about yourself to be true and how it informs the things that you do, you can then exercise control over them. And when we talk about manhood, when we talk about keeping it a buck or being that dude, what I can share is the most powerful thing about manhood for me is self-control. It's not being able to control others, but being able to control yourself, being able to control your own sense of shame, being able to control your own senses of anger, sadness, doubts, being able to control those. And I don't mean control them in terms of suppressing them, drinking them away, smoking them away, doing something dangerous that makes you forget about them. I mean actually addressing them, exploring them by yourself, writing about them, talking to a therapist about them. And so you understand why you do the things you do. Otherwise, you're no more than just a wild beast if you're not able to discern, sit and understand why you do the things you do, and then decide whether you want to change them or continue them, depending on how they impact your life. And this is true for whether you are someone that gets up every day on time because you go to the bed at the right time. This is true about whether you eat healthy because you want to live a long time. The decisions we make have consequences. And if we're not going to be still enough to think about, well, this moment of shame that's created because of social media or because of how society has put me into this box is going to create shame, and it's making me feel like I have to do these certain things. Until you can question those for yourself, you actually become a slave to these forms of stimulation, whether, like I said, from social media, TV, pop culture. And it really, some of it has a really negative impact on our community. It leads to us abusing alcohol. It leads to us abusing drugs. It leads to us abusing others, women and children in our family. It leads to us committing violence against those that look like us. And until we look at the root causes and see where we can make the changes in our own lives, then we stay helpless in this battle against not only mental health, but wellness as a whole, as you talk about it holistically. So that's kind of what I would really want to impart to people, that they really have to question why they do the things that they do to understand it, and then continue to explore it so you can have control over it.
There were a couple of things there I heard, sir, that counter some of how we're portrayed in media, a certain standard, as you said, to sum it up, conditioning, that we are taught as Black men, no matter sexual orientation, no matter socioeconomic impact. Sometimes that stereotype is not sometimes, for me, most of the time, that first layer is I'm a Black man. And then, the other things, and that may not be everybody's purview or scope on it. But I would say this, what I heard from you was that as much as, on the positive side, we're walking around and we're the man and hey, king, and I'm a king of my castle and whatnot. Some of what I heard from you is if we're really striving to be authentic, keep it 100 to be that, then we're going to address some of this stuff. Am I off? And I got, I'm a couple of minutes over.
You're right. And I got a little bit of time. So, I mean,
okay. All right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a king has counsel. A king has a court that they lean on people, right? A pastor has counsel. Politicians have counsel. Wise men and women are not usually standalones, right? Unless they climb some mountain and they're just giving out information at the top of the mountain. Most of them are surrounded by other wise people with other different skill sets to provide a counterbalance, or to provide a wider scope so that they can look at issues, so that they can discern and make the best decision, not only for themselves, but for those that are around them. Like, that's, if we're going to claim kings and queens, then let's move accordingly.
So a king and queen checking in with somebody about them not feeling so okay is wisdom.
It's some kingly, queenly shit.
That's what I'm looking for, Carlos. Let's go there. And so here's another piece. That we're portrayed in the media a certain other way. I heard you use the term like animals or whatever. And the visual I was looking for, and you didn't go where I thought you was going to go. When I asked you for the visual and holding that stuff in, I was looking for like the boom, the tick, tick, boom. And so there is potential, we're woke and Black Lives Matter and post George Floyd, and we're proud of our Blackness, but I want to say this right, is there more potential for us to do things that perpetuate, that would cause the media to portray us in that manner when we don't address what you're talking about?
Yes, I see where you're going with that. I mean, the media is going to do what they're going to do regardless.
Okay,
and they have a specific role, so I believe they're always going to do that.
Yep.
But to your point, I believe the more we can show that to ourselves, the more we can show that to the little boys and girls in our community. That's where we need to be mindful of where we show our humanity to. That's where we need to be most mindful of where we show our wholeness to, is showing the boys that it's not just about being tough, and to show girls it's not just about being cute. It's showing them the full range of what it means to be a human being. It's showing boys that there is a feminine balance that you can have. There is feminine energy that you should be able to embrace, and vice versa. That you're not locked into gender roles, and that there aren't certain things, because it's not just a tick, tick, boom. And let's be mindful that that suicide and depression rates are skyrocketing amongst men. They're usually always higher amongst men because we've been conditioned not to share. We've been conditioned not to talk about it. But it's not while we see the tick, tick, boom, we see someone holding it in that bottle blowing and it resulting in violence or something bad. It's the slow ones that are really concerning, because there's so many more of them. When you're walking through our neighborhood and you find elders gathered outside the liquor store, that's not a tick, tick, boom. That's a 20, 30-year habit that could have started at a high school level. That could have started as childhood trauma. And because because we go years, if not decades, without it being addressed, without being able to bring it to a family member or a counselor or a trained mental health professional, we begin to self-medicate. And sometimes it's through drugs and liquor. Sometimes it's just through bad habits, bad relationships that are always continually draining on us for the next 10, 20, 30 years of our lives. So as much as the tick, tick, boom and looking for those flashing lights are important, it's also looking at the day-to-day behavior, and we do it to ourselves. We get tired of our own day-to-day behavior and want to change. So when that becomes more dramatic or more intensified because it's trauma, whether it's something that happened on the streets or someone's private life, those are the same things that are bearing on us. And we have to be able to not only speak to it, but also listen and really hear it with empathy, and be able to deal with it as people. I mean, I think being able to share that with others, men's fellowship groups, and my own seeking mental health therapy have been the two things that have been huge in terms of unlocking, I guess, not only my own beliefs, but also the getting rid of the shame. When you realize that your sorrows, your troubles are very similar to many others, it removes the element of shame that you're not out there by yourself trying to figure this out. And then you can draw from counsel from other people based on that kind of that shared path or that shared experience. So I always encourage people to talk. I mean, obviously you want to talk to somebody you trust and love, and that someone loves and trusts you, but it starts with talking. And sometimes maybe you do that with yourself first, and it's a journal or it's a diary or it's a blog. But there has to be some conversation for you to be able to process these emotions and these energies.
We could be here another hour, Carlos, because there's a lot there to, as we say in this space, like unpack. I'll go back and you let me know if I'm wrong to reiterate some bullet points. One, the thing I really wanted to convey to our brothers in the community, that naming, and Carlos said this, being authentic, and I'll put it in terms, being 100, that you're not okay, that you're feeling some sort of way, baby mama, girlfriend, job, housing situation, anything that's going on in life, to keep it 100. Did I miss anything in that part, Carlos?
No, I mean, yeah, we all are human, and we should be able to talk about all the things that trouble us, right?
And it's not, for lack of better words, Lord forgive me, it's not soft or it's not feminine, and we have to look at how we frame things.
I was gonna say, yeah, it only is if you believe it to be, then it is, right? And that's what I mean about beliefs. If you believe it,
yes, sir. If
you believe it's weak to talk about your feelings to another man, if you believe that you're supposed to men just suck it up and go through it, then that's gonna cause some. That's fine if that's your belief, but it probably will cause some stresses later on when you find yourself alone and isolated. Versus if you believe that you can be the same man, but have those conversations with somebody that loves and cares about you, maybe find a resolution, you might find that having that conversation might make you a better brother, a better lover, a better father. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a consequence to all that. And how you define manhood or womanhood or parenthood or any other hood, how you believe it is going to inform what actions you take to make those things possible or impossible.
That there, Carlos, I don't need to ask another question or ask anything else, because I was going to ask for a couple of other points to be reiterated. That's it. It is imperative that we really be real and try to even more raise a cadence and raise voices at all ages with our brothers around the importance of being real around feelings. And you didn't say it today, but you use this often. Stop telling the little boy that when he falls and scrapes his knee, what is it, Carlos?
That he shouldn't cry, that big boys don't cry.
And because it's like a what?
Oh, because you're crying like a girl. Yeah, I mean, we have all these different sayings. You throw like a girl, you hit like a girl. I mean, we have all these things that belittle women, but they don't just belittle women, they also belittle men, because it makes that boy feel like, that shit hurts. You skin your knee. If I skin my knee right now, I'm gonna be on the verge of tears, and I'm gonna want somebody to blow on that rubbing alcohol.
Because we're older, but go ahead.
It takes a little longer to get up, right? So I mean, robbing children of those emotions has a role. That in that role, you might not see that again until they're 15 and trying to date. But it'll come back. You know what I mean? Like these things that we teach ourselves about who we are at a young age, they really stick with us. That's why therapists ask about your children. It's the same thing about spanking. If you're going to teach a human being to comply to your authority by using violence, don't be surprised if that human being grows up to use violence to enforce their authority. And don't expect them to figure out all the time correctly whether they should use that only on a child that they can call their own, or whether they start to use that against another loved one, whether it's a partner in a romantic relationship or someone that they mentor. Like, violence is a tool, and it's a tool that parents use, and it's a tool that government uses. And we got to be real about having these conversations. I remember being in my 20s and mentoring teens and talking about, who had the most girlfriends was the coolest, until I realized that in my late 30s and 40s that's not necessarily a healthy way to educate young Black and brown men. And then I'm duty bound to now go back and undo some of that and talk to these young men about, listen, that might have been fun in my 20s, but what it did was made it hard for me to be emotionally open in my 30s and 40s. And so having these real conversations allow us the chance to be better brothers and grow as friends and as individuals and as community.
I will end here, Carlos. What is it? What you just opened up there to the older heads, to the OGs and whatnot? What's their responsibility in kind of what do you call it? I can't think of the word.
Even if we're remixing the narrative, I mean, those of us that are of a certain age and we've lived long enough to realize that there were some errors in the way we thought and the way we believed and the way we moved when we were younger. I believe that we're duty bound to correct some of those issues, to educate some others on those issues. So whether you're a Pop Warner coach or a Little League coach, or whether you just have the young brothers and the young sisters hanging around from the neighborhood that sit on the steps and listen to you, make sure we're going back and imparting wisdom, not just from a place of I know everything, but hey, I've made that mistake. Let me be honest and authentic about the mistake I made. Let me tell you about the choice that I made, the effect that it had, and then what I had to do to repair that, so that they can learn from those experiences. And I hope we all take that role seriously in our friendships, in our family, and in our community.
You know, my test. When I'm tired at the end of a convo, that means that it was a lot of exchange and just one I want to name that we had a moment there to smile and to laugh, because with all of this, can we just name, Carlos, too, that it's important that we be intentional about our joy as well as a balance in this?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to. I mean, obviously, our body and our minds keep track of all the negative things that happen to us. But I do think that we have to celebrate the light moments too, even if it's just sitting your ass on the couch and being happy you're done with the day of work or a day of running around, and you just get to sit on the couch and look across at somebody that you like, or maybe love, or maybe someone you just booed up with for the winter, whatever the case may be. As long as you're celebrating those moments of levity just as much as you hold on to those moments of darkness and strife, they're just as important, maintaining that balance. And that's what I spoke about earlier about being challenged, is that, you can have a bad day, a bad phone call, and get some bad news. And we record those things and we remember them, and we tie them into holidays and we tie them into birthdays, which is why some of these holidays then become tough, right, as you get older. But I mean, think about all the joy we also have tied into these holidays and these birthdays, and how many times we've gotten together with cousins and told jokes at the dinner table. Like, those should be celebrated and lifted up just as much, so that we're maintaining a healthy balance. It's about positive and negative, and it's about, it's light and dark. It can't just be all of one or all of the other.
Carlos, and you understand the terminology of this, because I ain't passing out no assignments, but I know there's this trend going on that you understood the assignment. And sir, I say that respectfully as and bow to you, man. There was a certain cadence and voice I needed in this space this afternoon when I found out Jelani couldn't make it, and I knew he had it covered, but he couldn't make it. And then I was like, oh Jesus. And so, bro, I appreciate you, sir, for everything you do in the community around mental health advocacy, around political education. If you want to hear more from Carlos, please feel free to tune in every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Spark FM Online, www.sparkfm Online. The PSA Show, you can follow him on social media, The PSA Show, exactly how it sounds, THEPSASHOW. That's the first time I spelled straight without Bob. I'm understanding assignments today, but no, in all seriousness, man, appreciate you, sir. I'm going to go and make a couple of announcements. And I'll be in touch, man. And thank you. And just
thank you. Anytime. Anytime. And I thank you for even giving the brother Jelani space. Just a young man who I known from my mentoring days back in the South End. So I've known him for about a decade or more. So it's good to see brothers talking about these things and more so doing these things. So I appreciate you as well, man.
Yes, sir. Hold on. Get back to Asia, Carlos, when you get a chance. I don't know if you can see the comments, but Asia needs you to put some info on the site, and I'll just leave that right there.
Okay, I'll go check the comments and see what I'm delinquent on.
Just go to practice a little bit of Black Joy. Look.
Oh, I haven't yet.
And if you know Asia, Carlos, she ain't
been on me. I know. All right, Asia, I'm on it.
I appreciate you, bro, very much, bro.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Later.
Listen, everybody, we are going to continue a conversation similar to this tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I have the wonderful opportunity of bringing a young man who's a mental health advocate in the room, similar to Carlos, and that is Kirk. And I need Faustin. Kirk Faustin is coming into the room tomorrow. He's a mental health advocate. He has curated an event that's taking place this weekend called the Dropout Summit. It's not what you think it is. So tune in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to hear from Kurt. And also on Wednesday morning, he is back in the room. Mr. Numbers himself is what I call him. Thank you all that have supported him. I found out that you all have cashed apped him and did some things to support him for the knowledge that he brings into the room. And so on Wednesday morning, December 1st at 9 a.m., we will have post-election votes analysis with the electoral campaign worker, Anthony Collins, who has been in the room before. We Need to Know Wednesdays, and that is going to take place on Wednesday at 9 a.m. So don't forget Kurt. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. and Wednesday, we will have Anthony in the room at 9 a.m. to do post-election votes analysis. Thank you all for tuning in this afternoon for your Monday Midday Java, and we will see you on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Have a great day, everybody, and remember, brothers, to make your mental health a priority, and remember, sisters, to make yours as well. And we got to live. We got to live. We got to thrive and not just survive. With that being said, have a wonderful day. And again, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Peace.